plain yellow pumpkin to become a golden carriage. It's from Cinderella.
Where did you come up with
No
that?
idea, but it's in my head. What's
I
that?
hate that. Call the meeting to order at 9:01. Identify for the record the people who are here, if you'll start down there.
Pat Vaness.
Anita Saracita.
Karen Woodson.
Jane Plummer,
Scott Safford.
Doug Ekman.
John Herron, Jason, and, is it Jason? Jason
Jason
again?
and Jason.
Jason and Jason.
Jason and Jason.
And my brother, Jason. Okay, we haven't heard from Forrest. Have we heard anything that he requested an absence? Okay. We'll go ahead and everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stay standing.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless us with your presence here today. Grant to us the wisdom to see all things in true perspective. Grant to us the patience to hear one another with open minds and hearts. Grant us the strength to meet all present challenges. May all that we do this day bring honor to you and credit to ourselves. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. I just got a text from Forrest saying possibly 15 minutes he had an issue, and we'll see. I'm just going to let him know that we're starting. Okay, thank you. So, the approval of the minutes, are there any corrections or changes we need to make? Or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as distributed.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we are to our public hearing. First, we need to disclose any ex parte conversations.
No conversations, just a drive-by.
I had a drive-by. I also looked at the property on Zillow. I looked at the property on LPA, and I just spoke to these fine folks, but not anything in particular. They're neighbors, and that's all. Oh, I don't know, John, do I need to disclose? You know, Spiro Pools actually did the pool at my house. I don't know if that's something worth disclosing or not.
No.
Okay, even though you did.
It's on the record.
I drove by this morning. I also had a chance to talk to the owners and walk around the house and look at everything.
I also went to the property and spoke to the owners and went around the whole house. Okay.
Drive by.
No disclosures, just the documents before me.
All right, so who's going to start the public hearing?
First, we need to swear in the witnesses.
Oh, good idea.
And also, would be remiss if I didn't remind that while it's certainly not inappropriate, and in fact, our code does allow for ex parte communications, including site visits and communications. The applicable criteria in our code, as well as the case law, says you have to base your decision on what you hear during the hearing here today. Okay? If anyone who's going to testify today, can you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Witnesses have been sworn.
Okay.
You might have a couple more. Two more.
Okay, would you guys need, you want to swear them in now or at the
Yeah,
time you
let's,
speak?
Gentlemen, are you going to testify? Yes. Yes. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Yes. Witnesses have been sworn.
Thank you. And Jason's going to give it for the town.
Morning, LPA members. For the record, Jason Smalley, Planning and Zoning. So today we're here to present the variance application for 745 Matanzas Court. As was presented to you in an addendum letter on your desks, there was a change to the staff report. The LPA, or the dimensions of the lot, the front dimension was actually half on their most recent variance of what the initial staff report was based off of. So the required setbacks for the pool equipment are 7.5 feet, not 9 feet. And therefore, that changes the requested setback necessary from 5 feet to 4 feet. So we just wanted to put that right up front, that if you do decide to recommend.
This says 3.5.
3.5.
Well, you can do, 3.5 feet. There are some piping right at the front of the slab. It's not part of the actual equipment, but if they do request a little bit extra, that may be necessary. 3.5 feet is the difference between the 5 foot necessary and the difference of 1.5 foot of required setback. So 3.5 feet is the absolute minimum that would be necessary. That doesn't account for any changes they may have to make on the pad, but I'll let the applicants decide if they need to have that extra 6 inches or not. The minimum necessary will be 3.5 feet. I apologize, thank you. So as was stated in the report, the equipment was determined to be on the opposite side from the original approval. The equipment initially was supposed to be on the north side of the house from the initial approved plans. What I've been told is that the architect determined that the original placement underneath a set of stairs would not be the best placement for the natural gas pump that is being used. And so a field change was made to put it on the same side as the electrical conduits, and that's where the equipment was installed. Again, the equipment is installed as of right now, so what they were asking for is to leave it where it currently is, which is on the side of the people who have shown up today, the neighbors. The equipment itself is 4 feet 2.24 according to the most recent survey, and so setback requirements from that 7.5 foot setback would be 3.5 at the absolute minimum. If there are any questions from the board about our process or anything else I can answer, I'm here to do that. Obviously, we have the applicant and their people here as well as a neighbor.
I have a question. There is a site plan that the homeowners brought that has a date on it of 5/27/2021, and it has the equipment on the same side as the air conditioner.
That was a proposed plan that was approved by building, who was not reviewing for setbacks. The original plan that was approved by planning and zoning was for placement on the north side of the house. But what you're seeing there is the package that was approved for the building side, for structural and for gas and electrical. That was not reviewed by staff in planning and zoning for setback purposes. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there. I understand that they say there was a change between what the architect had drawn up and what the installers had
And
put
would
through.
code allow gas to be put underneath a stairway?
That is a building code issue. I'm not exactly sure about that. My understanding is that the architect or the original designer wouldn't allow it to go under the original proposed series of steps because they're wood and it was enclosed.
Can we get an answer? I
From-
think, yeah, because, I got the packet a week ago. That's the one issue to me that is the most significant. And if it cannot go there by code, then I definitely think that affects the criteria we have to look at and where things can be located.
So right at the moment, we don't have a building official that's here in the office today. I would go ahead and defer to the installers, and perhaps they can explain why it is it can or cannot be.
Any other, excuse me,
Yeah.
wait.
Sorry.
We might have more questions.
Yes, of course.
Jason, there's, page 27 of 34 is just I can't tell if it's something or if it's
Right.
nothing.
Right.
It looks, it's backwards, I just don't know what it is.
Can't read it at all.
Can't read it at all. Do you have any idea what it is? I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. Does it look the same in everybody's?
Yep. All you can see is this.
I didn't look at it online, I could have. It's got a seal on it, it's notarized, so I'm guessing it might be part of the application?
But it does look like it's reversed.
27
The
of
writing is
34.
reversed. Community something. Up.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's just a transfer page on the back.
Oh, so it's nothing?
okay. So, so this is a variance request after the fact. What generally happens in situations like this? I'm trying to remember if I ever heard something before. I'm sure we have over the years, but what happens?
Generally, we would want to catch this up front. As I said,
Why wasn't it caught up front?
because originally, when planning and zoning reviewed for setback purposes, it was determined to be on the north side, which would have provided for the minimal amount of setback. So it was approved based on that. It was determined after the fact, after a site visit, that the equipment was actually installed as a field change, as far as we're concerned, to the south side. And that's when we told them that wasn't originally approved by the plans, and it would more than likely need to be dealt with as a variance.
And when go ahead. Sorry, Jason.
Jason Green, Community Development. I just want to add to it because I had some conversations with the folks. There's a little bit of a breakdown when you have, in these types of permits, because you have trades. And so you have a pool contractor providing site plans and all the things that are required for mechanical and plumbing and all that. And then you also have civil plans in this town on the upfront part of it. So my understanding in communicating with some of the folks working with them is that the civil put it on the plans, and I guess they didn't realize it, or the architect had talked, and then it got further in the process, and the pool equipment people decided it should be somewhere else, right? So we aren't involved in the review of the following plans that go into the pool equipment stuff. So it's a mistake, but it was also a mistake on their side. So I think part of that is just because all these trades are running around doing their own kind of plans as
Right.
part of this, rather than a master set.
But at some point, somebody made a decision that now requires the property owner to seek a variance after the fact. So they've spent a substantial amount of money on a variance request. Their equipment is already installed, and potentially, they could have to move it.
Right, so originally, their option is to move it and not have to go through the variance process.
Right.
And that's with anything. If you're in violation of the codes, you don't meet the requirements, and it's after the fact, it's treated as if it never happened, right? The reality is that it did happen, but they had the choice to move it, and they chose to do this process
So do
instead.
we know ultimately who made the decision to move who made the decision to move the equipment?
To put it on the south side? I don't, other than I think there's a disconnect on their team of whether they knew that, whether they realized the civil and everybody else on the front side of this process put it on the north side, or because it was convenient and it fit, not thinking about building codes or other things, because that's not what they specialize in. They're just trying to get a site plan approved versus later in the process. No, I don't know. I think they can answer that question for you.
Okay.
So but technically, either way, you would be here in this venue, making this decision, even if that was caught up front. It's just the reality of it already being there is the difficult part, right? And I get that, but we have to treat it as if it didn't happen, and they're asking for it.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? Forrest Kritzer just joined the LPA. Okay.
I just want to make sure I understand. We have a survey from Matanzas. Is that the existing conditions now as built? And the two dimensions that we're concerned with are the 4.24 feet.
Okay, so yeah, Jason's saying that should be the as-built of the existing conditions?
Correct.
Yes.
And the dimensions that we're concerned with are the dimensions 4.24 feet.
Correct. So there's a required setback of 7.5 feet.
Correct.
So the variance is the difference between those two.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood the exact issue, yeah.
Just to add to the explanation to Mrs. Saracita's question, or Mayor Saracita, it's simply the appropriate thing would have been for the property owners, architect, whoever prepared the docs, to come back for a site plan amendment to show that they were relocating, and at that point in time, it would have been flagged as, oh wait, that's in the setbacks. Either you're going to have to, apply for a variance, or figure out some other configuration.
Well, my question is that they had, this was done 5/27 of '21. How does that work with all of the dates being after that for the inspections, that nobody noticed it?
Well, the approval letter was 1/18.
So generally, again, Jason mentioned this, is equipment and the pool part of the permitting process, they're not looking at setbacks. The assumption is they're following by the site plan that was approved and is part of their packet, right? So the breakdown being, they moved the location, decided it couldn't be somewhere, and nobody said, well, we better check with setbacks.
Could I ask when the situation surfaced, or what triggered did somebody see it, or?
The inspection part of it is going up there, and so we do as-built, and we also sometimes do site inspections as far as for the setbacks. And so once you see equipment in a different spot, and then you see the measurement's not 7.5, that kind of said,
So it was basically a change during construction
correct,
from the approved plans.
correct,
Why wasn't,
The inspector found it.
correct.
my question is, why wasn't the drawing attached with what you're saying was the drawing attached to the package? I mean,
What do you mean?
we don't have any proof that the thing was ever on the other side.
Yes, zoning have reviewed the original application, has the plan, has the equipment shown on the north side.
But why wasn't that in the package to show us that it was approved that way?
Okay, well, I'm telling you, it was shown that way. Yeah, it was up by the stairs on the north side, and it met setbacks, and that's why it was approved.
Any other questions?
We should see that.
If the LPA so desires, you can, accept the proffer of Mr. Green, that the approved set of plans on file and with the town show them underneath the stairwell, and we can then provide that and make that part of the record.
This is, yeah, and we can print them, and there's the gentleman in the front row there also had the copy of it, so we can pass that out or make copies for you if you want. And
That'd be
it's the
great.
stamp plan. Yep,
Jason, Jason squared. Is it not possible, I really would like the answer to Patrick's question. Is there not someone we can call and say,
How about the fire department?
is there not, I mean, does the town not have a building official on speed dial?
No, I think we didn't want to answer right here in the second. We can try to get an answer for you related to
I'd
that.
be willing
It
to
may
take
be-
a break to see.
My other question also would be, does staff feel any differently if the case is, no, you cannot put the pool equipment under stairwells? Does that change your staff report in any way?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And the reason,
Explain
the reason why, noise and equipment has been a big issue with the council, and we've spent a lot of time on trying to figure out additional setbacks, buffering, screening, all types of things for equipment. That's really become an issue. So the location, I think there's other locations on the site potentially. Pool design could have been done in the beginning to accommodate that. Unfortunately, because of the setbacks and the requirements, the location where it is possible is not preferred. So I think that's where it comes down to, that difference.
Let me, I guess, try and partially answer that, although certainly it is within the LPA's discretion, and I don't necessarily disagree on the circumstances, seeing if we can get that answer. But, generally speaking, professionals prepare site plans, construction plans, and they submit them to the town for review. And during the normal course of business, staff, both building department as well as the zoning department, will review those for consistency with the land development code as it relates to the zoning side of the review, and the Florida building code from the standpoint of the building code. And then ultimately a permit is issued, which happened in this particular instance. So it's reasonable to infer, based upon the fact that a permit was in fact issued for this is that there was a determination by town professional staff it met the requirements of the code. Otherwise, a permit would not have been issued. And so at first blush, my assumption would be that staff determined, including the building official or the building department, that the equipment could go where it was proposed. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been approved that way.
Jason, I have a quick question. At what point did you guys discover this? Was it a day after the pool was installed? It was a couple months?
I mean, I'll let Jason maybe touch on that. My understanding from our conversations was that there's some type of inspection or review. I don't believe the pool was done at that point. And I don't think it's been obviously CO'd at this point either. I could be corrected, but it's on hold for this component to it. I believe they're allowed to finish some work so it doesn't collapse in kind of thing. But I don't know the date. I don't know if Jason knows the approximate date.
Not the exact date. I believe we were notified by a neighbor that they had questions about where the placement of the equipment was.
So it was during the construction process?
Yeah, it's still under construction technically.
Thank you.
And Patrick, part of it, just to finish that thought, I think part of that conversation again is, it sounds, well, noise, right? We have a lot of equipment, but many times we talk to people about putting the equipment in their rear yard or behind the house, and what's the reason why they don't want to do that? It's because of noise. They don't want, so that's why I think that conversation's been such a strong point of discussion, because we're putting it off to the neighbors, and then the neighbors don't like it, but we don't want them behind our
And I
side.
understand that, and
It's a challenge.
and I think I'd like to hear from the applicants and just see, because I think, again, no specific fault to anyone, but there was miscommunication on both sides, and now we have a situation where.
Well, I mean, I would disagree with that. I think that they changed the plan during the process. They had passed the site plan review process.
Understood.
process is that's
As
first.
The attorney just told us, you obtain a signed-off building permit, there's a bit of an inference that it's been reviewed and it's been approved.
Correct.
Again, as professionals, we have responsibilities to go back and maybe talk to the planners, and I get that, but the pool guys may not necessarily know that, and the construction guys may not necessarily know that. So if we don't have internal checks and balances, I think as a town, we need to take a portion of the blame. And then that's why we're here, and I think we need to consider that.
Well, I don't want to be argumentative, but I think any professional contractor that moves equipment, especially on the other side of a property, should stop and know that nowhere can you just do that. So my experience, but again, that's because my
They feel
experience,
like they've obtained a permit.
right, and that
It's
site plan,
shown on the permit,
it's not.
but
That,
on the other one, it
no,
is.
so okay, well, I don't want to get in an argument, but my point being, everywhere you work, they should know if you're going to move it from one side of a property to another, there's an issue there.
And I've had to go back, same thing, on projects I've been involved in, where we had to correct things and go back for a variance, a deviation after the fact. But again,
But-
I fully see how it happens, and I understand, and this is not, unfortunately, this happens more than we think.
And I think what John's, I'm putting words in John's mouth, but I think John's point is, the equipment may be compliant. It probably is compliant with the building codes. The plumbing is probably compliant with the building codes. It's in the wrong spot, right? So that's not the issue. We're not questioning at this point. We're not the inspectors of that part. The building inspectors are, but that's not the
Jason,
issue.
You
Yes.
see why Patrick's question about a permit with the equipment under the stairs, if the building code official, if the building official would not have approved that. I think what at least in my thought process, listening to Patrick, it's trying to mitigate the loss here. So let's try to mitigate the loss.
Sure.
And without saying, okay, Spyro, it's your fault, or town, it's your fault. We have to deal with this somehow.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know the town council is super sensitive to that, to noise. That's been going on for 7-8 years. It's been a constant topic about air conditioners and pool equipment. So that's an issue.
And just to elaborate where I'm coming from is, a mistake is no justification for variance, okay? And a preference is no justification for variance. However, if you can demonstrate that there's nowhere else we can put it, and we looked at putting it under the stairs, and we are told by code that we can't, then I have to consider that, of where else can it go?
And I agree with you, and if that's your thought process, regardless of whether it's there or not, I think that's important, and so I respect that.
And we have to go through the variance process, for sure, I agree.
But I think the important part is then also the testimony of the other people.
Absolutely.
So that's my point too. We can go ask and see if we can find out an answer. I don't know that they're gonna be by phone or whatever, be able to say this specific site, these stairs. They don't know the clearance, there's all kinds of issues. I think there's gonna be some testimony, I would assume by the applicant, because that's their job also to justify that. So I think that's a good point.
Could you, I mean, mistakes happen. Could you just put a sound barrier around it or something to satisfy the neighbors? Because those pool equipment are very noisy, I know, my neighbor's got one. Sometimes it goes nuts. But could somebody step up and just say, hey, well, hey, we moved it, we had a permit showing it one place, when we built it, we put it in a different place, but we'll put a sound barrier around it.
And I think
If
that's
we
why-
approve it, that could be one of the conditions, yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And you've got a whole bunch of testimony yet. And we haven't seen that that offer, but you may get that, who knows, so.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for either Jason? Okay, all right, so the applicant can come up and present their case. Please identify your name and your address for the record.
Good morning, my name is Jeff Spiro, I'm the applicant and contractor, and this is the homeowner.
Donna Payne, 745 Matanzas Court.
Thank you.
So kind of like what you guys were going through was that our building plan that was approved, that you guys have, shows that it is on that right side. I understand that the site plan shows it on that left side underneath the stairwell, but even when we did pull the setbacks on site, it was putting it even closer on that left side underneath the stairwell. And that stairwell that's there, is there only egress and egress out of the property itself? So if there was a mechanical fire underneath there, that would make it to where they have no other access to get out of their property itself, to get out. So we didn't just move the equipment without getting approval, because our building plans that were approved for the building plans that we built off of showed it on that right side that was approved off of. So that's why we built it off there. We didn't, after the fact, change it, because I know that's what they were saying, that we changed it afterwards. We built it per the building plan, we just not off of what the site plan showed, is what happened with that.
Do you have the building plans
Yes.
approved, signed by, where's the building permit?
They all have it. Here's the permit number.
There was a copy given to you at.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't make a printout, so
It wasn't in the print, it wasn't in our package, but they
oh,
brought
no,
it.
I didn't get one.
Yeah. So if you look at that first page, it's got the permit number on it, and it's got it on that right side of the house. And it's got the stamp that says reviewed for compliancy. So that's why we put it onto that right side.
Oh, jeez.
Just to make sure I understand, that's this.
Yes, sir. Yep, right there on that right side.
Sure enough, shows it there.
Another thing I want to point out is this was inspected, and
Come closer to the microphone, please.
Sorry.
Thanks.
this was inspected multiple times along the way and kept passing and passing and passing, and it wouldn't have passed if it was in the wrong spot. And everyone, I made a copy with everyone's initials. Every step of the way, every time it was inspected, it passed.
Yeah, so the deck, during the deck inspection would be when they would have checked for the equipment and location of equipment, and that was signed off on for deck inspection. So the equipment pad was in place, the plumbing was in place during the deck inspection, that was signed off on.
Members of the LPA, can we take a 10-minute break to
Sure.
straighten this out? Because, you know, I have no reason to necessarily doubt the information that's been provided. And if a permit, you know, is issued, then, which I think the point of the discussion that's been taking place so far here, we have a site plan approval versus a building permit approval that apparently may not match up. So if I can have 10 minutes, see if we can
Jane, I
figure
think-
out what
I
happened.
think that's a good idea.
I do too.
Do I need to have a vote on that?
No.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. We'll resume at 9:40.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, Doug, I forgot to introduce you. I will do it after this hearing, sorry. Yeah, no problem. Ragga frezza, ragga ragga.
head.
Jeff, how are you?
Good, how about you? Long time no see.
Town's building official, Mr. Streeter, and he's informed us that, yes, the equipment can go underneath the exit stairwell. What has caused the problem is that the applicants chose to then use as their power source natural gas. Okay, the equipment can be there. The equipment is perfectly legal, perfectly in compliance with the code underneath the stairwell.
The gas equipment can't be there.
The gas line, they could have put an electric power. In fact, they still can. They can relocate the equipment and put in an electrical power source. So as to the issue of what, what came first here, it's somewhat the chicken before the egg. The site plan approval was granted to the applicants showing the location of the equipment underneath the stairwell. Without submitting the site plan along with their building permit application, the applicants submitted at least as best according to staff, and you certainly can ask the applicant, they submitted a building plan that showed the equipment on the other side without ever going back to planning and zoning and saying we need to amend our site plan approval because we're looking now to move our equipment.
So,
Can I make it, and I apologize, John, it was, Mr. Stone is the sitting building official for the town for right now with another company, not Mr. Streeter, even though Mr. Streeter is the one that reviewed the plan.
That's right. That's correct.
Just as a clarification.
so if it were electrical, it could be underneath there if since it's
No.
gas?
The equipment can be there, period, okay?
Mr. Stone said, just a few minutes ago when I called him, his statement was the combustible fuel source you wouldn't want to put on stairs, especially when they're in the egress to the building. That was
Now,
the answer.
With that said, I do know, because this is an issue that's not necessarily come up before you all, but, before city council, town council, and other locations issues, is every building, whether residential, commercial, has to be provided an alternate means of egress. It's a requirement of the building code. You can't build a home, and in fact, I've prosecuted several code enforcement cases where after the fact, the secondary means of egress have been, closed off and no longer accessible after, building inspection. And we've taken that property owner to, because they're using it for some rental or some other type of commercial use. I've taken them before a special magistrate or code board, as the case may be, for violation of the code. So there's always an alternate means of ingress and egress provided under the building code. So the stairwell theoretically is not their only means of egress. It's obviously the most convenient and causes an issue, but it is the power source that causes the issue here. And if you, wish to hear directly from our building official, certainly can continue the matter. You can allow the applicant to continue to make their presentation and ask them any questions based upon the new information that's been provided here after the break. It's up to you as to how you wish to proceed.
I guess,
I'd like to continue to hear if they.
and then we can discuss it afterwards. Okay. Okay, so back to the applicant. Once again, put your name for the record.
Jeff Spiro, the contractor.
Donna Payne, homeowner.
I've got a question. With regards to the power source, was that decision made prior to being told that you were not in compliance, or was that decision made after?
No, so the heating source option was picked prior to any of this even being brought up from the beginning, because that was picked during the selection process.
Construction was complete when we found out about this problem. everything was in. Water was in it, we were in it. So all this is new. And I'm gonna say, we have, building code may say one thing now, but this is a very old property. We have 7 units on the island. They all only have one exit door, every single one of them, because there's the old beach houses. So there, to say you have to have 2 forms of egress isn't necessarily true on the island.
But Donna, you do have
No.
2 sets of stairs.
No.
No,
they
that's
have
the
one.
only step.
But we're assuming you have windows where you can get out of the window safely.
No, I mean, I'd have to jump 11
You have to
feet.
jump, yeah, you have to jump from the second floor.
I'm not as young as I used to be, so I don't think I could do that. No, that'd be, I don't know how tall that is, but I wouldn't feel comfortable jumping out that window.
So were the stairs that go the stairs that go off of your house towards the water, I'm guessing those stairs were removed to make room for the pool?
No.
Those stairs were never there when we purchased the house.
Oh, okay.
That was an
Yeah,
existing
there's
site
always-
plan
Yeah.
from prior.
And can I also say, I'm an insurance agent, and those wooden steps are old beachy wooden steps. I would never put anything mechanical underneath there, because they would just, one spark, one lightning storm, and those, anything can catch on fire, and then we'd just be toasted there. So I wouldn't have put it there, whether it was electrical or anything mechanical underneath there. I wouldn't feel safe there.
And I have no reason to disagree with the property owner and what she just said. But the reality is that the original site plan and that was submitted to the town showed them in that location. If it was the applicant's intent never to have it there, then they should have submitted a site plan for approval by this planning and zoning that showed the equipment where they proposed, where it currently is.
But I'll also contend that all of our inspections that were out there, and every one of them signed off on everything, they should have, during the process, noticed all this. That's what inspectors are for.
They're not inspecting to determine for compliance with setbacks. They're inspecting for compliance with the building code.
That's
So
the glitch.
there's a procedural part. They have to submit as-built. That's the final check for setbacks, if you're in compliance with setbacks. The inspectors are inspecting equipment, and mechanical equipment and plumbing equipment is a different inspection. So we get as-built from, that part of the code that was changed about a year and a half ago, is because we were having some issues with pools and equipment moving around, is doing the as-built so that we could confirm that. That is late in the process. That is after it's done, I agree, but there's no other time to do that. And so what John's talking about with the site plan, just remember, I want to point you back to this. In the location that it is now, if a variance is approved and it's allowed, they have to modify this plan because it changes their stormwater. It is in a place where they have stormwater as part of the approval. So it's not just a simple, okay, leave it there. It changes the entire tree line, it changes the stormwater, it changes everything that's on the site plan. So the issue here is civil didn't talk to pool for the applicant. That's what happened.
So when it's both in the package, shouldn't somebody be looking back and forth at the pieces of paper? I mean, whose responsibility is that?
This is the site plan.
Uh-huh.
Building reviews, compliance with plumbing, electrical, and all that.
So-
There shouldn't be another site plan. There's not another site plan other than what zoning approves. And building doesn't care necessarily. I'm overemphasizing that a little bit too much, but their job is to review for compliance with the code, which has to do with life, safety, health, welfare stuff, and mechanical, plumbing, all that.
But, and Jane, I'll concur, it's like that everywhere. You know, you build a subdivision, you provide your site plan that gets approved, that shows the location of the buildings. Building gets put in the wrong location, the building code will look at the building, is it built correctly? Yes, someone later might catch that building is off, we've got a problem. You know, it's our responsibility as designers and developers to put the building in the right place. So this is not, this is seen in many jurisdictions, and it's a normal process. But again, that's what the variance process is for, deviations, to try to address these issues after the fact. And
So
it's unfortunate, but
I have a question. As a homeowner, and I have this permitted plan that shows exactly where it was built, how would I know about these 12 different levels? And then over a 5-month period, many representatives from the city comes and checks it and inspects it, and it passes, and it passes, and it passes. How as the homeowner would I know that?
You wouldn't necessarily, Donna, but your contractor should.
The contractor or the project manager should be regularly comparing the building plans that have been approved to the site plan that's been approved to make sure they're consistent. And if they're not, then either revising one or the other to make them consistent. It's, we don't know. It's the people who are who are doing the project who have to inform the town that they've changed their mind. It's now not going to be here, it's going to be there. Okay, well, you need to, in some cases, amend both your site plan and the building plan. In this particular instance, apparently they submitted the building plan application showing the change already from day one. And zoning had no idea because the zoning approval had already taken place for the site plan.
But we didn't submit a different set of pool plans. So the original set of pool plans that were submitted are the same ones that were submitted from the very beginning. So there was we didn't submit a pool plan to begin with equipment on the left and then submitted a different one with it on the right. So from the very beginning, we've had the same pool plan showing pool equipment on the right side.
That pool plan's not consistent with the site plan. While it may have been that way from what they did, no one on, I'm inferring, okay? It's, for you all to decide ultimately as a question of fact as to whether or not anyone ever checked that pool plan against the site plan to see if they matched up.
So then when they come out and come out to do deck inspections, during that deck inspection, they're checking your pressure, your plumbing, and your form boards. Why at that time, though, was that not caught?
Because it's not the building official's responsibility to make that. He's only inspecting, he only has authority under the Florida Building Code to inspect for building code compliance.
You know what
doesn't-
it's like? It's like going to specialists. You go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they don't necessarily care that you have a broken leg. You could be there with a broken leg, complaining about your broken leg, but they're gonna tell you there's nothing wrong, because all they're looking at is their specialty, and that's what happens in this case.
But when they go out there, they're still going out there with a set of plans, making sure that your footers and everything are to the dimensions per the set of plans. So they're still doing that with the equipment as well, though. So they're going out there, still walking out there with this building plan to check to make sure that your footers are 21 foot from the house. They're not just checking the actual.
I know what you're saying.
And I
that's-
would agree with you that you would sure hope that your building official
You would.
notice where
The discrepancy.
if a significant part of equipment is not on the same on the same location on a plan, when he inspects it, that he raises a red flag. You would hope so.
Yeah,
Didn't the site plan change because we had to take this off?
yeah.
And that changed everything. So
Yeah.
that is the original one. And they changed it somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Because we had to take a little corner of
The deck off of it.
yeah. So I can probably find it on my iPad, the
All right.
one that was.
So there may be another site plan that,
I don't know that it matters.
I'd like to hear from the public,
right,
the neighbors,
Are there-
and then I think we can discuss it.
okay. Any other questions for either the pool guy or the property owner? All right, thank you very much. And open public hearing, and you have both been sworn in, so if you want to come up to the podium and give your name and address for the record, please. You can put it up on top if you want to.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, okay. My name is Doug Young, and I live at 750 Matanzas Court. That's the adjoining property that borders 745 to the south. And Stacy and I, my wife Stacy and I have lived there for over 10 years. Before that, I spent 35 years as an engineer for Caterpillar, the heavy equipment maker. And I just want you all to remind me never to volunteer for the LPA. Because I respect you guys. It's incredible the things you have to put up with. Anyway, no, I really strongly object to the variance. As has been well discussed, the site plan governs setbacks, and the site plan was in compliance with the setbacks, but the as-built is nowhere near in compliance with the setbacks. Where it's put, it creates, we've mentioned noise, but also we've got heat and noxious fumes due to their choice of the combustion source, the gas heater, that is way too close to my property line. Mainly I object because the variance is totally unnecessary. There are many possible configurations that would meet the setback requirements. I'll give you a little extra background. Oh, by the way, Stacy passed out a photo of the installation, and it shows that virtually that whole equipment pad is within the setback. And also, you'll notice another little piece of the pool deck that sticks out there that's in the setback and wasn't shown on the site plan. So I first noticed this questionable equipment placement on June 2nd. At that time, the equipment installation had started. The pool shell had been erected. The pool deck had not been built. I immediately contacted the owner by email, who checked with the pool contractor, and their representative told her that the setback requirement was 0 feet. And I have forwarded that email to town staff, so it should be on record, and I have a copy of it if anyone wants to see it. I believe the same day, I sent that to the town for investigation, and soon after, I believe it was the next day, I did meet with Mr. Sparrow at the site, and he finally did acknowledge that the setback requirement was there and was being violated. The town issued a stop work order. It was up for 5 days or so, and then I noticed them working on the pool equipment again. Went over, and the worker that was there said, oh yeah, they got a variance, we're gonna finish it up. So they finished it up, they filled the pool, they did the deck, they completed all this work that makes it now nearly impossible, well, I would say much more difficult to remedy the violation, the setback violation. I don't understand how or why the stop work order was rescinded and the pool was allowed to be completed, but it's substantial. I'll mention neither the site plan nor the drainage plan have been revised to show the as-built configuration, and where that pool pad is located is substantially impeding the drainage. It's important to me. The house was raised in 2006. There was no drainage plan requirement at the time, so as a result, I have a really big duck pond in my front side yard, and partially because of this house having been raised. Now they're adding more impervious surface to pool deck, and the drainage plan is important to me. So the town's report recommends denial of the variance, but it does conclude that the proposed placement is the minimum required variance, and I don't understand that because I do feel there are many alternatives that would meet the setbacks. They could have chosen, even choosing gas-fired equipment, they could have chosen gas-fired equipment with appropriate venting. I happen to find the Hayward Universal H-Series gas pool heater that can even be installed indoors, let alone outdoors under a set of stairs, with proper venting. Or obviously an electric heat pump could have been chosen. It's got better efficiency, it avoids noxious fumes and heats, and it's the most popular choice in our area to begin with. The town's report also mentioned that the equipment before installation of the pool deck could have been installed in an alternate area on the north side of the house, closer to the pool. And finally, the equipment could be installed in a utility room or an alcove area carved out of the home's ground floor. It's just a wood frame wall with vinyl siding there, and that alcove solution is pretty common here on the island. I'll just say this, I'm gonna say the owners are no babes in the woods, okay? They own a business that buys, renovates, rents, and sells real estate on Fort Myers Beach, so they knew what they were buying. And in fact, the lot is not particularly challenging. This lot's 50 feet at the waterfront setback line. That's the most popular width of a lot in the north end of the island, if you think about Primo, Palermo. And so to ask them to comply with setback requirements, I don't think is unreasonable at all. Okay, so in summary, the planned installation was legal, the actual installation is not. I brought the violation to the attention of the owner, the contractor, and the town in plenty of time to fix the violation with a minimum disruption to the project. The contractor and owner knew or should have known that the implemented configuration would violate setbacks. The as-built configuration significantly impedes the required drainage plan. And most importantly, there were and still are a number of alternative configurations that will meet the setback requirements. They should pick one and implement it, then we can all get back to enjoying our little piece of paradise. Thanks for your consideration. Do you have questions for me, or are you allowed to ask questions to me?
We can't ask questions, right?
Do you?
I do have just one question. There's two fences there. I do have a question, yes.
I'm sorry.
There's two fences there. There's a chain link,
Yep,
and then there's the PVC.
yep.
Who owns the land in between?
The boundary line, I believe, is between the two fences. The chain link is my fence. And the vinyl fence was put up as the pool enclosure.
Okay. And there's landscaping down the majority of it, but not right in front of the pool equipment. Do you think that would help with your sound issues if there was landscaping there?
There's sound, there's heat, and there's fumes. And those are all too close to my property line. The town has regulations, they have setback regulations to provide a buffer between properties so that anything that's there is some reasonable distance. We're trying to make our density in this town less, not more, right? And so I'm like, okay, landscaping, sound fence, you know, there are things that could be done, but why don't we just fix the problem, put the installation into compliance, and get on with our lives?
About how far would you say your house is from the equipment?
The equipment is 3 or 4 feet from the property line. My house, hopefully, will get rebuilt, renovated. You know, I've got a desirable lot there. It's a bigger lot, and when a new house is built, it's not gonna look like my house for darn sure. That's a big, you know, that's a big lot, and it'll be developed much more completely than what my than what my house is.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll close the public, or is anybody else?
I've got questions for the applicants and staff.
Okay, so,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but because you brought up vegetation, this isn't done, right? So that when you go by the site's not finished.
correct.
If you look at the site plan, there's stormwater all along that side of the house. I don't know how much that vegetation is staying, because the stormwater goes right up to the property line. So the swale, the digging out of the swale, is right up to the property line per the plan. So, not knowing where that vegetation is located in relation to the property line, I think you just gotta, if there's conditions or something, I don't think existing is probably gonna stay if it's on their property. So just keep that in mind, or where is it gonna go? And then how does that alter the stormwater plan, which would need to be modified anyway. So that's just some things to think about. Because again, none of that, I don't believe any of that stormwater's in, as
Yeah,
far as I know.
I think that historically, one of the standard conditions, particularly with variances, that staff has always requested that the LPA recommends to the town council for, assuming there's a recommendation of approval, is to compliance with the stormwater plan or the town stormwater requirements, because shifting the development envelope based upon the variance will obviously affect that. Here, we have an instance where it's already occurred, and we're having to now kind of go backward and figure out, or the property owner's gonna have to figure out how they then modify their previously approved stormwater plan that's shown on the site plan, and how it gets modified to comply. And, that's, if it doesn't, then the variance wouldn't be able to be implemented even if it was granted, because the condition is compliance with stormwater.
Where does the stormwater permit go on here? What's the timing on that?
What do you mean by timing? Like, when does it have to be done?
When should it be done with all of these sign-offs? When does it fall into place to be checked off?
When it should be and when it is done are two different things. That's up to the property owner to phase how they do the construction, I guess, or the contractor for them. As long as it's done prior to completion, it's gotta be in, and they submit, usually the way we do the inspection for the stormwater is the as-built. So what has happened because of the way our codes are written for those as-built is you finish everything, finish the stormwater, surveyor comes out, shoots an as-built of the property, and then the engineer that designed this plan submits a letter with those, they review the as-bills, and then they submit a letter with the as-built saying, it's as constructed, it's compliant with my design.
Okay.
That's our process. So typically, the stormwater goes in towards the end.
Anita, you had a question?
Jason, can you talk to me about the stop work order that was placed? So,
I don't know,
and-
Jason,
and-
maybe you'll.
So I'd like to know, when was the stop work order issued? Is that where you were going to? When was the stop work order issued? Was the equipment in place at the time the stop work order was issued? And are you allowed to continue, as I always understood with a stop work order, whatever you do after the point that the stop work order is issued is at your own risk, that really you're supposed to stop working?
So as soon as we were notified and visually saw that the equipment was different than we had originally permitted, there was a stop work order that was issued immediately. The contractor came in and discussed it with myself and Daphne. So the question of the stop work order was for specifically the equipment. The contractor made a compelling point that the shell was almost completed, and we feared that it would be damaged and it could possibly have uplift because they're on the water. And we wanted to allow them to go ahead and finish the pool and the pool interior and get some water in it, which would actually keep that pool in the ground. We were afraid it might pop up if we stopped. So yes, a portion of it was allowed to go on because there was a
that's the
fear of
pool.
damage. The
But
pool.
I'm talking about the pad and the equipment.
It was already installed, all the piping was done, and I believe all the electrical was already connected, if not inspected, when we showed up.
At the time that the stop work order
The
was.
stop work order was
issued.
done.
So when they said the stop work order was rescinded, you're saying you only rescinded it for the pool?
The stop work order was never rescinded. What happened is we allowed them to continue working on the pool shell and the pool deck. The pool deck was in no place that we could stop them because it was a hazard. It hadn't been completed yet, and there was a lot of very shaky stones. But more importantly, the pool shell had already been placed, and the fear again was if it wasn't allowed to complete, it might do damage.
I've got two questions for the applicant, if we can do that.
Any other, okay,
I-
okay,
I then want to follow up about stormwater.
no problem.
So my questions are, you guys deal with setbacks, you're familiar with setbacks, you know you have to meet setbacks,
Yes.
no matter what project you work on.
Yep.
Okay. And are there any other locations on the site where this equipment could have been put?
No.
And could you explain that?
Because we even when we went out there, we took the site plan and even strung out on that left side underneath the stairwell as well. And that would actually been even closer on that setback on that left side when we did an on-site measurement on it. So it would have been even more tight on that left side underneath the stairwell. And then on the rear of the property, you can't put it on the rear of the property because it would have been in the setback on the rear of the property as well. Then you can't put it in the front yard. That'd be the only other place you can put it. You can't put it in, there's no location in the front of the home to put it.
Okay.
Because with it being that special lot, like she was explaining earlier, is that the way that the lot's laid out and the home's laid out with being that pie shape, it limits where you can put anything on there.
And I guess that question is for staff, though. Could the equipment not have gone in the rear yard? Is the rear yard setback the same as the house in this case, or was there space?
So it gets wider towards the back, so you have greater chance of meeting that side yard setback on that north side, because you do have room. Where the stairs are, the property line pulls away from, I guess, if you did a straight line on the stairs to the rear yard, you get more space, more width on that side there. So there is some room over there. What's the rear setback? I can't remember what the rear setback for the equipment is.
You get an inch more if you look at the site plan.
No, so on the site plan, the corner of the pool deck is at 7.5 feet. If you're looking at this, there's a measurement on the upper left. The deck is at 7.5 feet. And if you look on section D, on your lower right side, that is the section that's on the north, cross-section on the north. It actually has PE, that's the pool equipment pad, that the civil engineer thought was gonna go there. And is that 9.2?
I'm not seeing
So-
that one, Jason.
Section D, lower left, you've got a D and an E, or lower right, I'm sorry. I'm looking back. So your lower right. Are you looking at this one?
I see a C and an E.
There's,
D.
a D is above it.
That's
Yeah.
where he's talking.
And then on the north side of you can see the big, on the north side of the site plan, it says pool equipment pad and it points to it.
Okay.
That is a D, that's a cross-section of D and it shows the pad and has the dimension there.
So Jason, we've got brick below, so there's a deck above that area where it says brick below?
I believe so. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a wooden deck up there.
Yes, there's a wooden deck there, yes.
And then what we show as pool paver, if not for the pool pavers, the equipment could have gone there?
It can go, so that's my point, is the corner of those paver area, and it's right by cross-section A. If you look, there's a dimension for the pool corners, or the deck corners, the pavers. It's 7.5, and in the back of it, it's, I think, 10.5, 10, God, I'm getting old, can't read anymore.
So it could have gone there.
As long as it's 7,
Design.
now, I've got to check in the rear setback that it's got to be away from the water, but there's, so, we have additional setbacks. So I don't know what the distance from the canal back is. I'd have to check on that.
Looks like 8.1.
So it may be closer to the stairs than it looks like there's room here, because the rear setback may eliminate some of that space. Yeah.
Yeah, the side setback looks like 10.9, but to the water is 8.1.
Right, I don't believe they'd be able to put the equipment up there.
Right.
No more questions for me.
I do have another question for Jason, or either one of them. I don't know which one will answer this. But it is relative to the stormwater issue. Mr. Young referred to letter D in the findings and conclusions. that there does seem to be a conflict with, because you say, your finding and conclusion says that it will not be injurious to the neighborhood, but then in the description, it sounds like, well, yes, it could be. So you say, staff reminds the applicant that even if the equipment is allowed to stay on the south side of the home, that the stormwater retention area, which was approved during permitting review, must be provided, and existing trees must be retained or moved to avoid damage or loss of the plant material. How does that happen? I don't see how that happens there.
Go ahead.
So we were gonna leave that to the contractor. They were gonna go ahead and, if approved here for a variance, they would have to, as Jason said, redesign slightly or largely, the design of their stormwater and how they were gonna retain it. I assume, as not a stormwater expert, that they would have to provide a little bit more stormwater retention area towards the front of the property. But what I was trying to get at is there's some existing coconut palm trees that are there. So those, per our environmentalists, would have to be retained on site. And if they couldn't be retained where they're currently at, they would need to be replaced somewhere else outside of that stormwater area. We hadn't gotten to that point yet, obviously. As Jason mentioned, the stormwater redesign would happen after any approval or approval with conditions from town council.
So when we come to, when Jane was asking Mr. Young about vegetative buffer, somehow, whenever that came up, that vegetative buffer would almost have to be on Mr. Young's property, not on this property,
I think
because there'd be no place to put it.
it would be very hard to retain it in that area because that area is going to need to be used almost entirely for stormwater after the fact when they have to go back and redesign. Buffers could be done alternatively with some other type of material. It doesn't necessarily have to be vegetative material.
Okay, so recognizing how significant the stormwater issue is, if they were not able to satisfy that element, then what happened, and let's assume that, I'm not gonna talk about what we would do, let's assume that the town council approved the variance, and they were not able to satisfy the stormwater, what happens? You can't do it, essentially, isn't that,
They have to. So
have to.
as I would say, I would
so
separate.
they would have to move it?
Right, John made a good point about conditions of stormwater for the variance. That's really not necessary as a condition because it's a requirement of the code. We do it to carry it forward so that's more of information and knowledge. And when somebody picks up the variance, we want them to also realize there's other components.
Sure.
Right? So, but the code requires the pool and the square footage of impervious that they've added to have stormwater. They have to meet it. They can't get a CO on the pool till they do. Whether it's underground storage, whether it's the swale, whatever it is. There's lots of other ways. There's lots of ways, and there's expensive ways and there's cheaper ways to do it. I don't know that the property owner understands what this stormwater design does to that vegetation. They can speak to that. But yes, there's an elephant in the room, so to speak, of that component. That is probably gonna be an issue once they go to put the stormwater in and not realize that. I agree with that. But that really wasn't, is it tied to the variance, is it not? Not really. That's an issue that they have to deal with no matter what. It's nice to talk about it now, but, okay?
Thank you.
Yep. So, and if you look, and again, we're not stormwater engineers, but it's about volume. And so if you look at section C that's in the middle of the bottom, that's the most, I think, descriptive what's along the south side of that house. You can see that swale goes up to the property line. A lot of times you want to top a bank to flatten out and then have the property. The engineers we're seeing submit don't do that. Does that mean they couldn't narrow that up and create a 3 or 4 foot buffer strip? Probably. Where does that volume go? Because you lose volume when you narrow. They could find another place. There's options. It's up to their engineer to figure that out. Okay?
Thank
I have one more question for the applicant.
They're allowed 3 feet encroachment, so they need 22.
22 feet, okay. And to answer a previous question, I think it's 22 feet, Patrick, from the rear property line for the equipment.
Okay.
It's 25 feet, but you can encroach 3 feet for pool equipment specifically.
So there would have been space?
I'd have to scale out where 22 feet is, since it's at an angle. It's tough to tell on this, but I can check that for you.
I wanted to call you guys back up to ask about where you are with the storm water management project and
Yeah, so right now we did do some revising on the stormwater, but we haven't fully finished the stormwater because of waiting to see what you guys were saying with the variance. We did end up doing a lot of stormwater in the rear of the property already right now that wasn't already on the original drainage plan. So in the original drainage plan, we did no stormwater in the rear. We redid the whole rear and then the right side already with stormwater instead of the left side. So that was already started on that side because to be able to help with that equipment on that right side of the property.
Okay. So, anybody else?
Just a question. So you're making revisions to the stormwater design that was submitted? Did an engineer look at that, or are you?
No, so I did that initially for right now until we figured out the whole variance process, at least to get that handled since that equipment is on that right side right now, to be able to handle the stormwater during the current period until we find out exactly what the variance process is gonna entail for the rest of it. And then I would submit that over to my engineer, and then he would then take what we've already done and adjust it per the existing that's there.
Yeah, we had to get grass planted or else everything
Yeah,
would've
or
just
everything would
washed
keep
away.
washing away at that point with being just dirt back there, so.
Did you have additional information? Okay. All right. We're going to close public comment and bring it back to the LPA for discussion.
As you guys saw, I was asking a lot of questions because I certainly empathize with the situation. I understand that when you get a building permit, there's a lot of people may assume certain things.
Right.
But what I can't get away from is that the contractor even said it, he knows there are setbacks. Even if this wasn't built, he knows that he needs a variance if he wants to encroach into setback.
But the plan was approved.
He still knows that he needs a variance to encroach into setback. Did he obtain a variance? He never did. I can't get beyond that
Well, that's why we're here with a variance.
after the fact.
Yeah. It always puts any board in a horrible position to have to make an after-the-fact decision, because we know it's costing you money and time and agony and everything else, and it makes whoever says yes or no the good or the bad guy. But, for me, sitting on this board, my job isn't to make a legislative feel-good decision. My job is to follow the rules and to make the best recommendation to the town council based on what we've heard, what we've seen, and what the rules are. And I'm with Patrick. I cannot escape some glaring issues. The stormwater is also going to be a big issue that, it's going to be a big issue with the town council. But that impact, all throughout the island, no matter where you live, I've seen it at my house, I've seen it on my street, I've seen it everywhere. Lord knows Jane has seen it. The impact of development on a property next door to you that it ends up having on your land or your property because of stormwater. And, I cannot support the variance request. It doesn't meet the criteria. And because it doesn't meet the criteria, I can't say yes to it. I can't just say, well, it kind of does. I'd like to help these people, because all of that's true. I'd love to help you. Love to help Mr. Young, too. But it does not meet the criteria in any way. Even the one that kind of looks like it might has the stormwater as a glitch.
And I think if it came to us prior to construction,
Sure,
we would have asked, first question was, can it go somewhere else?
yeah.
And if you could have demonstrated that it cannot go somewhere else, then things are a little different. But it seems to me that, A, you didn't go through the proper process when you're aware of setbacks, and B, there were other locations where it could have gone, and you could have redesigned accordingly. I can't get beyond that.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time visualizing where it could go.
But it doesn't matter, Jane. Even at this point, it doesn't matter where it could go. If you look at what we have to make the decision based on, as much as we'd like to help them fix this, the only thing that we can help them do at this point is say, doesn't meet the variance requirement. And now maybe the town council will look at it differently. Maybe they'll want to make some accommodations here for it, but you know,
What finding and conclusions do you feel that it does not meet?
it doesn't meet any of them. It doesn't meet, hold on, I don't want to make a motion because everybody hasn't said anything yet, but, so it doesn't meet A, they're not exceptional or extraordinary.
You don't feel that the size of the lot has?
No, because they bought that size of the lot, they didn't have to put in a pool. I mean, you know, in my own situation, I mean, that everybody has a lot, and you do what you can or what you cannot. B, the conditions that are justifying the variance are the result of the actions of the applicant. I mean, they put it there, so they don't qualify for B. C, the variance granted is the minimum. It could very well make C. I could say okay to C. Then D is the one that has the whole stormwater element glitch that I don't know about. And then E, the conditions or circumstances on the specific piece of property for which the variance is sought are not so general or recurrent. You know what, all it has to do is not meet one of them, and you have an issue.
My problem is that the pool is there, the equipment is there.
Yep.
Somebody's checked off on all of these things.
Yep.
And now what are we gonna do? Ask them to remove it?
Oh, if I can help you there, and it's, you may not like the answer, frankly. And most people, particularly applicants in this situation, don't like the answer I'm going to give, which is Florida law clearly states that a permit that was issued under a mistake or misinformation does not give right or to reliance. You cannot rely
But that
upon a
isn't
building.
the case here. That isn't, I mean, from what the Jasons have said, that isn't even the case here.
And they can't claim detrimental reliance on this?
Correct. They cannot claim detrimental reliance.
Really?
Because the building department did not know, or the applicant never showed on their building permit application where the site plan said it was supposed to go.
No, not right now.
So, you know, that's detrimental reliance under Florida law against local governments is one of the highest burdens, almost equivalent to meeting of the requirements for a variance. The courts in Florida have said that the general criteria for granting a variance are extremely high, and they're extremely high on purpose, because if not, then, you know, you'd be giving them out, as they say, like candy. There's a high burden of proof that has to be met to show that there are extraordinary circumstances, that they weren't the fault of the property owner. And I know that I've used this example in the past, and it's the one that immediately comes to mind. You buy a pie-shaped lot. By definition, your setbacks in the front are going to restrict you and building the same size house as if you had bought a square or rectangular lot. And there are, on cul-de-sacs. And that is the poster child for properties that generally get variances. And we do have some odd, irregular shaped lots in the town of Fort Myers Beach, like every municipality does. I don't think anyone likes dealing with these types of situations. Certainly we as staff don't. I don't relish the idea when I come here to inform you that the law says you're constrained. But you do have to follow the criteria, and all the criteria have to be met in order for this board to forward the item to the town council with the recommendation of approval. And ultimately, that's, you all can agree to disagree, and ultimately a vote will determine whether or not it moves forward with a recommendation of approval or denial.
I'm wondering,
Forrest, that's-
go ahead, Forrest.
The variance is, like you said, unconditional, whatever you have to do. Mine is more of a feeling of trying to make it right so that neighbors can relinquish their disagreement. But the variances are set for that reason, so that we don't have those disagreements. So that they can live in harmony in the property that they have built or they have bought that was already built, and the property next to them cannot infringe on their privacy or their right to have to do something else, stormwater, whatever it is. They were in compliance. The issue for this board is to decide whether there is a reason for the variance. And to infringe on somebody else's property is not a reason. I cannot accept as printed. Now, that is for us. Now, if there is a problem with the way these plans were approved, or was read, or misread, or anything, it's not the problem of our board either. Our board is to decide on the variance, and I'd have to deny it.
When I went there this morning and looked at everything, I mean, when you look at the property, when you look at the wedge that it is, when you look at the current location, the pool equipment, and truly all the space between that pool equipment may not be the property line, but all the space between the pool equipment and the actual house, because there is a lot of space there compared to the other side. I was much, I was like, well, to me, this, I don't understand, with some considerations, this could work. Did not know about the storm sewer, the drainage, that puts a whole different element and level to this variance, I think. So as much as I want to say that we can work around this, you can put some walls up, you can do whatever, you're gonna get into issues with the stormwater, no matter what it is, and I don't even know the depth of those issues.
Jane, I'm going to make a motion to deny the variance request, variance 20220076.
I'll second.
All those in favor,
I'm
or
going to see if Doug or
Anybody?
Steve have something to say.
any
I vote
discussion?
to deny the variance.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those, so, okay, I will, so that, I didn't vote, let me think. I'm frustrated as to what will be the answer and how you find the answer. So I'm gonna vote again, vote
Against the motion.
against the motion, correct. I can't think. So I don't feel we found an answer, although it's not our job to find an answer. I'm just struggling with the whole thing.
This is the proverbial rock in a hard place.
Yeah.
So I just want to, okay,
We
so
want to have the answer, but we can't. We
Right.
don't.
do we know, did Jason answer the question, can it be put in the front yard?
Well, this is,
I'm just
case is
curious.
closed now.
I'm just curious.
I don't know if he did or not, but
Okay. All right, moving on to, before we do the administrative agenda, I first want to
it's a small town, you know everything.
thank you all for coming, and what will happen is you guys can go to the town council and present your case, or you can talk to them.
Jason's gonna meet with them and talk about
Okay.
dates,
Good.
make sure their availability and all that for council.
But, and options.
Yes.
And thank you all for coming and speaking today. I want to congratulate Doug Ekman, who is our new LPA member.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I I've been living on Fort Myers Beach since 2007. I live at 120 Sable Drive.
You've been very quiet about it.
And I'm Scott's neighbor. And
That's probably it right there.
Poor guy.
I got on the Anchorage Advisory Committee, and it was interesting. And this opening came up, and I thought I would be really interested to be on it. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Florida. And like I told council, I'm a board-certified environmental engineer and a board-certified water resource engineer. I still work full-time for a company, Kimley Horn. And so I've been involved in civil engineering quite a bit, over like 45 years. So these kind of problems come up on projects, and it's pretty, stuff happens. What can you say?
Doug, what does a water resource engineer do?
Well, like water supply, like public water supply, like I've worked on projects that supply most of the water for Sarasota County, Charlotte County, and DeSoto County, and water treatment plants, reservoirs, wells for water. Been involved in like septic to sewer projects. Currently trying to get a sewer built on Captiva Island. Fort Myers Beach got sewers years ago, thankfully. But there's a lot of parts of Florida that still have septic systems, which cause a lot of pollution. Yeah, North Fort Myers is a terrible shape. Yeah. So I thought it would be interesting, and I really like Fort Myers Beach. Like I told council, to me it's I've lived on Longboat Key. I didn't like it. I moved down here. The combination of a sort of a maritime vibe or environment, shrimp boats and so forth, beach resort, and residential community is very interesting. And so I like it here, so I wanted to see if I could contribute somehow. Yeah.
Welcome aboard. Okay, I also wanted to say that we had requested reorganization to be put on the agenda, and it wasn't, but I did email and ask that we could just add it to the agenda, so I'd like to do that at this time.
So I didn't mention it when you sent the email, I was tied up, but we usually do that in October. Because remember, terms, I know we got new member, but terms end the end of September and new terms begin the 1st of October. So that's usually when you do the reorganization.
I think that.
I know we have a full board. I think that was your reason, is because you have a full board right now, but.
Correct. I think the point, which is, it certainly is within, when the previous chair or member resigned from the LPA, by operation of your own rules and regulations, the vice chair automatically became the chair. Certainly prior to reorganization, when all this will be redone, if you want to appoint a vice chair in case of the absence of the chair between now and the official reorganization, it certainly is within your purview to do so. But generally speaking, to Mr. Green's comment, yes, the reorganization and appointment of a new chair for the following year, as well as a vice chair, generally takes place in October, when appointments become official.
So I don't have the list in front of me, but a couple of you expire at the end of this month and have to be reappointed by the council in the first meeting of October, I believe. So I'll check on that for you, but
And
Who expires?
I don't remember. There's every
Yeah,
year. Yes, Scott.
I'm expiring.
Well, yes, so Mr. Ackman expires
There's 3
also.
people that will be expiring.
Have you all?
I reapplied,
Yeah,
yes.
I reapplied.
I reapplied.
The council generally takes that up the first meeting in October.
So what do you think?
I think you do need you need a vice chair, I think, temporarily at
Yeah,
least.
I mean,
We could open the floor for nominations for a vice chair. I'll nominate Anita Saracita.
Second?
I was gonna say,
he got you.
She didn't see it coming, did she?
Patrick? Okay.
Any other nominations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's more of a not me vote, right? Yeah.
That's, what?
It's more of a not me vote.
Yeah.
And we'll put the new reorganization on as soon as,
October.
in October, when the new appointments are made. Or reappointments, as the
What
case may
item
be.
are we on right now?
We're on an administrative agenda now. I kind of
Okay, that's.
stuck that in there.
I was just, yeah.
Administrative agenda.
What, you do need to convene your Historic Preservation Advisory Board.
Oh,
We do have members
oh.
that would like to meet.
Not on the agenda,
I
so
know,
I,
it's under administration.
I was
So,
told to give-
no, I don't mean you, the advisory board to you.
okay.
If you're gonna maintain that, since there's new members that have been appointed for several months, you need to meet, I think, at some point, sooner than later. They'd like to know what they're doing. So,
So our historical preservation are the two of you guys?
Forrest is the liaison appointed for this board. And
Liaison,
so,
but not
right,
chair, right?
that's correct. You don't have to be, right, correct. The requirements are that somebody from this board has to be on that, but not the chair. But they need to, I think, the point is, they need to meet, set up their chair, vice chair, and then you can let them run with it.
Can you find a date and get back with Force so that you can have all those people together?
Yes, so I can't remember what it was. It's like the fourth Wednesday, I forget what it is, but we can, whether it's September or October, I don't know which one you want to meet in. Do you just want to set up a meeting and have it broadcast, and then, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Come up with a date and check back with him so he's available?
I think the agenda can be as simple as organization of
Right.
chair and vice chair, and then you guys can just chat on this. Okay. I will get back to you today.
Any other administrative?
So I have all my documentation from board.
Do you want us to document that, right? We
Yeah,
should-
so
that all needs to be
the
public
big-
record.
The biggest thing is the spreadsheet, and I can try to find the soft copy of it, but this is pretty much the target properties or properties that have been identified. There was a lot of time spent on this document, and I think it's gonna really help moving forward.
Okay.
It was a living document, so I think some things have changed, but it's a good launching pad.
Okay.
Good
And it highlights the point that, no offense, but we need to do a better job of the public records containment from that advisory board, to make sure that we have in town hall the records at least digitized or saved or stored or something, so that we can,
I'll look to see if I have, and then I also have the Facebook login. There's a live Facebook page.
okay.
I need to give him.
But you can share, yes, share it with us so that if something happens to
So
you,
I think that should probably be the town should probably take that over. right?
probably, yes.
Yeah, so I'll give you the,
Okay. We're doing a lot more social media now, so.
You would take this and multiply it so that the members of the board could have this kind of stuff?
Well, one, the main
Digital.
point to take is so we have the record that what was done. Obviously, you've talked about this stuff, and that's been on the record and recorded and all that, so that's not a big, it's not like it's behind closed door stuff. But the paperwork we want to keep, at least scan. And then, yes, we can distribute that to all the members.
okay.
That would close that loop, yes, thank you.
in the meetings, did I not see somebody that had requested a historical preservation, and it was being processed within the system?
Yeah, so there's a couple
I thought I read
applications.
that.
There's one house, 3 houses?
Yeah.
And the 2 structures, right? Or did we already do?
2 houses and the 2 structures.
2 houses and 2 structures, markers, I'll call them.
If I may, there was discussion about that, Member Kritzer. What I reminded the council at the meeting, and remind you all, is that we have differing levels. And I think it's I don't know, but there was discussion about the placement of a plaque. That's a historic recognition, which is different than legally and substantively than in a formal historic designation by the Historic Preservation Board, and then ultimately this body. There's a distinction both procedurally and legally, and just wanted to remind the LPA of that So there tends to be sometimes confusion with the terminology of historic designation as opposed to historic recognition.
So most of what you've done the last 10 years has been the recognition, which is fine, but the designation part has not been used, and that even goes, even the state Department of State, I think, has to sign off on it if it meets the state requirements, and that's what the designation in our code is recognizing it, that term, that's why. That's what the designation part is saying, is that it also meets state or federal requirements for that designation.
What I recall.
I don't know that we have any, have done any in 10 years or more or longer.
What I recall was in the fee structures. There was there was a comment about it, the
There's a-
$50 for the plaque and all that, and
Right.
Versus the separate fee
Right.
for the formal designation, which is, again, a more lengthy process and has different consequences.
Hopefully, I mean, obviously, you all drive that conversation, but encourage the advisory board to do some work, I think is the point to them, on encouraging use of the designation versus the recognition, because there's not a lot of criteria for the recognition. It's a plaque, which is nice, but again, I think Scott's point in the past has been, we're ready to take that next step of protecting and preserving structures, not just telling everybody what date they were built.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't mean to oversimplify that, but you know what I mean.
At least get a process in place so you can save a cottage.
I mean, the reality is you can get a plaque or before the plaque and then change all the siding, you can change lights, you can, and you can lose what you're trying to say is the point to the recognition, so.
Okay, so we didn't adjourn LPA, but that.
No, that was just a discussion because you are the Historic Preservation Board. And you, through Forrest, need to give direction to the Historic Preservation Advisory Board of what you want them to do and work on, rather the other way around. In my opinion, is the way it's set up.
Okay. Anything else administrative-wise? Moving on to LPM member items and reports. Start down there.
If you guys recall, last month, you asked me to go to city council and bring up or address the issue of the budget that we were given and the very little detail that was included as part of that budget. Just want to let everybody know there was a bit of a confusion because we didn't have a slot on the agenda. And and then I was asked if I was doing this officially on behalf of the LPA or if it was my opinion, and I clarified that in an email, made sure that they knew that I was speaking on behalf of the LPA. But I think we might want to keep either an agenda slot open for us to report back for every meeting, and if we can't, if we have nothing to report, we can just let staff know ahead of time. But if we do have something to report back, it's always there, it's always available.
What we used to do is we'd assign somebody for the next 2 meetings based on, to try to just rotate, everybody get some experience doing it. Or if there's a topic that somebody's really passionate about, so, hey, I can make this meeting. So maybe starting next month, we should try that.
Can we be put on the permanent agenda? Or,
I think you have like committee reports or
That's it.
committee
It's
something.
under-
Yeah, it seems to rotate. I don't know that you got to do every month, but I guess
Yeah.
you can offer to do that if you want. I think some show up more than others, but yeah, as far as the council goes, yeah.
Do you guys always have a slot for committee reports as part of? Okay,
I believe
we
so,
can-
on the
we can
agenda,
do it
yes.
as part of that?
Yeah, advisory committee reports.
Okay.
okay,
But you also have, what the rotating was also is somebody representing the LPA to speak in relation to the LPA's vote for cases. That was, at one point, we tried to rotate that and set up a schedule, and that never worked. But that, because again, if you draw the month that there is nothing, that's fine, right? Lucky you. But that could be something you do also, as, Patrick is October and Jane is November, whatever, however you want to do it. Or it could be month by month.
Then do we
That's up
have-
to you all.
Do we have to be on an agenda for the counselor, or can we?
No, it's two different things. It's what you're working on, it's what historic preservation is doing, blah, blah, blah. That's the committee reports. This, what I'm talking about, is representing and to give more depth to
When the
your
case
vote.
is presented, we speak
Correct.
at that time?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they usually ask, is there an LPA member? And that's something you can get back to doing a little more consistency if you want.
That sounds good.
You don't have to, but it's up to you.
Okay. Anita?
I was gonna bring up that very topic, but I'm glad it was already addressed. I wanna talk about the October meeting date. I will not be in town on the 11th. And I just
You and me
wanted-
both.
Okay, so I just wanted to see if there was any flexibility to move that either to the week before, the 6th, or the week after, the 20th.
I'm not, well, hopefully I'll be back, but if I am back, I'm not gonna be here as well.
Oh,
So, or even, what about Monday, the 19th, or
17th?
or we could go all the way to the 27th?
Are you in October or September?
I'm in I'm sorry.
17th.
Yes, I'm sorry.
When does-
18th would be the following week.
When's the council meet on that month?
The council meeting will be on the 3rd.
Ooh,
And the 17th.
Yep.
on the 7th. So should we not meet between the 3rd and before the 17th in case something comes up that we need to bring before the council?
We don't generally get to that next meeting. It's too much work. The agenda items are due before that. And generally, it's 2 meetings later, the way the cycle works.
Scott, did you say you will not be here on the 18th?
I'm gonna be gone from the 6th to the 12th, well, it's September, I'm doing the same thing you just did.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be gone from the 4th till the night of the 11th.
Okay, so you'd be open on the 18th.
The 18th.
Yeah,
works for
12th
me.
or the 18th,
For you?
19th.
Does it work for everybody else?
It works for me.
Works for me.
Jane?
that is
I appreciate that. I will be,
maybe a funeral, that we haven't set the date for Nancy's funeral, and it's gonna be in that 3 days period there. Right now, I don't have a date, so maybe I.
And I don't know that 9 o'clock slot is available, because we have other committees that meet. I can never remember who meets when. So that would, I mean, not that that helps you don't know, but
Okay.
whether it's a morning or afternoon, if you knew.
I personally, I have a conflict on the morning of the 18th. I might be able to change it, but right now I do.
I'm flexible. If there's a better day for everybody, I'm gone from the 10th through the 13th. So any other day,
What about Wednesday, the 19th,
that would be fine with me as well.
if Chambers is open?
Why don't we look at the
Look at
times that are available,
19th,
and
they
then
get
maybe
back
you'll
to us.
know
I
a little
think
bit
that's
more
a
about it.
meeting date for the Anchorage Advisory Committee,
That's
the 19th
The
that morning.
morning, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can meet after, or,
So look at the 18th and 19th
Okay.
and send out an email back to us,
Sure.
what's available.
Thank you.
and just so Mr. Ekman knows, we generally do this about 10 out of the 12 months, change the meeting time.
That's fine, yeah.
Then the
I
only
understand.
other thing I was going to ask about was whether or not, oh no, that'll be under items for next month's agenda. Never mind. That's all I have.
All right, Karen?
So I just have a question, and I don't even know if this is appropriate to ask it here or not. But we've been talking for many months about the vendors, the new,
Still being worked on.
still being worked on.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
We do anticipate and having it appear on the LPA's agenda no later than the meeting in October. So,
okay. So then what happens, because this came up in the budget meetings, so what happens with the vendor fee increases if it's in
Same-
the
it's-
other thing?
well, let me address that. There is after, through many adoptions of different items in the code, the town, in some instances set within the code, fees and things that would theoretically or nominally require an amendment to the code to change the fee schedule. I think that it was either during the time that Ms. Saracita was on the council, or maybe even before, the town council adopted a resolution saying that all the fee schedule, all the fees would be set on a yearly basis by resolution. And so that's what we now do. And as I explained to the town council at that time, is they're separate. The fees are the fees. They, you know, the regulatory framework is in the code. It's within the discretion of the council on any item, which the council exercises on a yearly basis, is they adopt the fee schedule going into every budget, because that's the process that currently exists under our code.
So they can't be amended.
Well, ultimately, as part of the fee schedule? Yeah. Fee schedule can be amended at any point in time, and I said that as well during the budget cycle.
Okay.
Okay, it's a resolution, you know, any fee schedule, even if it were by ordinance, you just process an amendment. Okay, so, and I think part of the discussion on many of the fees that came up during the budget discussion were, you know, let's see how it goes for the first 3 or 4 months, and potentially revisit whether or not there needs to be modification to them. That's a purely legislative issue in the sole discretion of the town council at any point in time. It's done generally at the beginning of the fiscal year in order to anticipate and provide for an idea of what those revenues potentially will be.
Anything else?
Nope, that answers my question.
Scott?
Thank you.
I have nothing.
Force?
I have nothing to add.
Doug?
Nothing, ma'am.
I have nothing either.
Can I have one more question
You
for staff?
may.
Comp plan amendments that are moving along.
You're reading my mind. You looked at my
Any-
notes.
Any updates, or is that coming back to us in any way
Yes,
at some point?
yes.
Just a vague yes, or,
It's not vague, it's very specific. And direct.
ETA?
This did not mean no.
Now, that's gonna be vague.
Okay.
Ish.
by the end of the year-ish?
Yes,
By the end of the year-ish?
yes, at least several of them were, yeah. Yeah, there's, Sarah and I have gone through and worked with a consultant and gone back and forth on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I can tell you all that one that's coming before you, that may be kind of out of orders, updates the sign code.
The what?
Updates the what?
Sign,
Sign code,
oh, yeah.
sign regulations.
I was gonna touch, yeah, so your next meeting, whatever,
Talk about Pandora's box again.
so whatever meeting we pick for October it's gonna be long, just to let you know, be ready.
Fun.
Pretty long.
So we'll have sign, supposed to have sign, potentially
We will.
the vendor, and we've got 2 cases that are gonna be very complicated, so.
Great.
This was one today for 2 hours, so multiply that by 4.
And we'll have new, two, 3, hopefully repeats or new people. That will be interesting.
Yes.
That'll be interesting.
No,
Are you reading?
not until after, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yes,
October,
yes. Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I have not reapplied, and I'm glad it came up.
Better do it, because you're the liaison to historic preservation.
Yeah.
So, and they can't meet without you, so. Anyway, yes, Patrick, for the comp plan stuff, yes. We're into wordsmithing and stuff, so, and why is this here? You know how that always happens, you write it, you edit things, and then you realize, why are we bothering keeping this thing or tweaking this thing? Let's get rid of it, or let's add something, so we're in the throes of that. It's lots of fun.
Okay, community development items and reports.
5155, Williams was one, I believe, I wasn't here, but the last meeting had a date certain of October and November, has withdrawn. So they will not be coming back before you for that previously set future date. And then what we just talked about for October, that's all I have.
All right, items for next month's agenda?
That was,
Well, so, and just, they found a way to tweak and meet the requirements of the code, so that's why they withdrew.
I'm sorry, I didn't get.
oh,
LPA
yeah,
attorney-
I knew they
items.
would.
Did you have anything else, John?
No, I just, want to, reiterate that, sometimes, the requirements of my job, unfortunately, is to sometimes be the bearer of bad news, whether it's for the applicant or, the board as individuals or as a whole, what you might want to do. You know, unfortunately, it's my responsibility to, you know, keep you all informed of what the requirements are. And I know that sometimes it sounds like a broken record, and it is, but it does bear repeating from time to time, which is, you know, the law says you have to follow what's in the code and the criteria. And if the applicant can demonstrate to you all that they meet all of that criteria for whatever it is that they may be applying for, then, you know, that's certainly up to within your discretion and your responsibility to make that determination. But at the end of the day, you know, it's you know, we're confined by what the code says we have to do and what the criteria are. And again, that's why you'll hear me say that it's perfectly fine to do a site visit, and it's certainly fine to listen to both sides of a particular issue outside these four walls. But as part of your deliberation and your decision-making process, you can only rely upon what you hear during the hearing, what is presented to you by either side, staff, the applicant, or the residents, and base your decision on that information as you apply it to the specific criteria. And to go outside those lines invites, you know, potential court action and the reversal by the courts. And so I don't relish it, but that's my job.
Okay, we'll skip public comments since there's no one here to speak.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Jane.
Motion for second by
I'll second it.
Forrest.
since
All
I'm
those in
late.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We adjourn the meeting at 11 o'clock.
You guys have any use for this paper, this stuff? Can I talk to you for 5 minutes? Both of you.
Anita, I need to have a discussion with you after this is over.